Hello? Oh, hi, Amazon Prime series, Them. What do you have to say? How are you today? Oh, wow. You want me to tell them? Okay. Anything else? Okay. Bitch. Anyways, Amazon Prime series Them told me to tell you that the 1950s called, they want their racism back. Hi, I'm Naimah. You may not know me now, but you will know me at the end of this video. So, this will be my analysis of the Amazon Prime series Them, aka one of the biggest laughingstocks for being known for being a ripoff of Jordan Peele's Us, but we're gonna move past that. We're gonna talk about it later in this video, but not now. We're in the first part. There are 3 parts to this video. We are going to discuss why people act the way that they do. Number 2, we're going to discuss classism and how classism also aids to racism in America. And then we're going to just overall have a discussion about how we as a society can come back from the intense racism that white people literally forced upon the whole world. So, yeah. I have a lot of notes, but I ended up writing an essay just on one of the parts that I want to make in this video. So I'm gonna try to chop it down as much as possible. But if I ever have to revisit this topic, revisit this analysis in any point in time, just know you're about to get the essay. So, yes. Also, I have notes on my phone because it's a lot. So I'm gonna do a quick summary before I start talking about my topic, so let's get into it. In the Emerys, which is the black family that moved into Compton, California, you have Lucky, you have her husband, I forgot his name because he genuinely annoyed the heck out of me. Then you have Gracie, and then you have Ruby, her older daughter. Gracie is her daughter that's in kindergarten and 1st grade. The family wasn't just 4 people, it was technically 5. What happened was, right, when the Emerys were still living in, I believe, North Carolina, they had land and they were living on their land. And one day a random white woman took it upon herself to do what she does best and to be mad and violent and use her anger and her violence against black people who have something more than she has. What happened was, one day Mr. Emery took him and his 2 daughters to the movies, leaving Lucky and their baby at home. As Lucky was doing her house duties, taking care of the house, washing clothes, dishes, and feeding her child, randomly she saw a white woman standing outside of her house. She went outside just like anybody would, and she started talking to the white woman. They had a conversation. Everything was going fine until the white woman heard the baby starting to cry, and then she realized that there was a baby in the house, and her interest picked up. So she's like, oh my gosh, is that a baby? And so when Lucky goes deal with her child, she answers to the white woman, yeah, I have a son. And the white woman's like, oh, can I hold him? Can I touch him? And she started acting really creepy. So the white woman, being a major creep, was like, oh my gosh, I want to touch the baby. Let me touch the baby. Da 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 da. And Lucky was like, I think you should go now. Give me 50 feet back immediately. Because mind you, Lucky and the Emerys had a dog, and that dog was like, bark, bark, bitch, you better leave us alone, bitch. But then also the dog ended up like running away, but he came back. I don't know, the dog was fickle. But anyways, so The white woman ended up having like a secret white mob of like white men who were following behind her, and they all had a plan to go inside that woman's house and to terrorize that woman that day. And that's what they did. They SA'd Lucky, and while SA'ing Lucky, the white woman found the baby, gave the baby to one of the other white men who wasn't SA'ing Lucky, and they played hot potato with the baby until the baby died. And they were playing hot potato right in front of Lucky as she was getting SA'd. I have to emphasize that because that's disgusting. But it is not unbeknownst to the colored people. After they did that, after they killed the baby, they stopped SA'ing Lucky, and they just left. Didn't rob her, didn't take her money, didn't do any of that. They purposefully chose the Emerys that day to terrorize them. Lucky had to bury her own child, as many black mothers have to do. She had to bury her son, her first and only son, in her yard. And nobody in the family, except for the husband, who was semi-trash, understood her trauma. Because Gracie, at the time, had to be in kindergarten, had to be like 4 or 5. And Ruby had to be, I would have to say, she was like at least 13, 12, or 14, 15 years old. That little range. No one understood her trauma except for the father. But the father, he went to Second World War or First World War. And I believe that, like, let me fix my eyelash. Do I look normal? I do. I look cute. But anyways, he was in a war. He came home from war with trauma already himself. But then to deal with the trauma of his wife being SA'd. His wife was SA'd, and the murder of his son. And Ruby, not knowing that, made ignorant decisions and, like, you know, calling her mom crazy, calling her mom cuckoo, not knowing that she was SA'd in their kitchen. So whenever she has to cook, she has to think about physically being SA'd in her kitchen and watching her son be murdered in the kitchen, the same kitchen. Like, that's a lot to deal with, and the children never knew. Because of this trauma, they, especially the father, thought it was best for them to take this opportunity that he recently got to move to California, specifically Compton. And so they do that with the intention of making things in their life better, especially for Lucky, because Lucky was a school teacher. Lucky was vibrant. Lucky was an extremely intelligent black woman. It's just that extremely traumatic experience changed everything for her. So she couldn't physically go to work. Sometimes she couldn't physically get out of bed. It's like she was paralyzed and numb. And so they chose to give her a life in another place, on another coast. I feel as though many black people who did the Great Migration up north or to the west all had the intention of making things better, without realizing that even though they want better, that doesn't guarantee them better. Like, moving to the West Coast isn't going to negate the racism. And I know a lot of them didn't think that the racism was going to be gone, but the racism only intensified, especially when it came to urban places. When they moved to Compton, they meet with this realtor. And this realtor had a habit of selling homes to African American families, to suburban places, suburban neighborhoods, majority white suburban neighborhoods with zero diversity, with many of them not even wanting integration. And her stupid terroristic act of not protecting these black people but only placing them in these houses, knowing that she was going to get that paycheck just to feel better about her career, just to have more, I guess, numbers and sellings. She did not care about their protection. She did not care about the consequences. Oh, I'm sorry. She did not care about the consequences of her actions and how it's going to personally affect those black families who lived in the suburbs. She was trash. They moved to Compton, and as soon as they moved in, all the neighbors knew, because it's the 1950s. And if you didn't know this, I feel like only recently neighbors have been significantly less nosy, but in the 1950s, everyone knew their neighbor. They were extremely personable. They had relationships and friendships with their neighbors because of that, right? They were so mad and so triggered to see the Emerys move in that they immediately called a KKK type of rally, type of meeting, because they were like, these people are in our neighborhood. They starting to infiltrate us. Every time that a black family moved into Compton suburbs, they were immediately met with the terrorism of the community. They were watched, stalked, and threatened on a continuous basis, which often drove the African Americans either to the projects where they believed that they should be in the first place, or to a mental breakdown. To make things worse, the house was also, haunted. Imagine moving into a haunted house in an extremely racist neighborhood. Any second, any day, you could die because it wasn't made for you. It wasn't made for you to thrive. So therefore, they want you to move out immediately. Main culprit of this terrorism was Miss Betty Wendell. And Miss Betty and her husband, first of all, her husband wasn't an ally, and I feel like more white people are similar to Betty's husband than what they really think they are. Betty was a uptight, annoying, boring housewife who didn't have no play from her husband, because deep down inside her husband was gay. And I feel this is how I feel. I feel like he was gay and he didn't want to be with her. Mind you, I'm a part of the alphabet mafia, so yeah, but he was gay. He really wasn't really into her. And so she had a little secret relationship with the milkman, and the milkman did secret visits to every housewife in the neighborhood. And yeah, Betty didn't have no kids, and she was extremely insecure about not having no kids. And so seeing black people live directly across from her with their 2 daughters amplified her anger even more. And so therefore she took it upon herself to bully those people into moving every single day. Yes, her husband really didn't care. Her husband was like, bitch, I don't even really like you for real, and you really expect me to participate in your stupid boo-boo the fool games? Girl, die first. So yeah, did anything else happen? I mean, Betty went missing. Betty was kidnapped by the milkman because he was really obsessed with her. And yeah, she got kidnapped. They were looking for Betty. Betty was never found. Betty tried to escape. Betty died. That's what happened when you play Boo Boo the Fool, trying to ruin people's lives. And because I'm really into karma, I don't really feel bad for Betty. I really don't, because you had all that energy for those black people who simply just lived across the street from you, who didn't want to be friends, who just wanted to live their life. So yes, besides Betty getting karma and her husband simply not caring that she went missing, you had the neighborhood men who were rallying behind Betty, and they were trying to talk crap about her husband, who simply minded his business because he had other things to worry about, as in finding some pussy. One of the neighborhood men who threatened Mr. Emery, trying to say, oh, if you want to stay in this neighborhood, just know that we're going to terrorize you every single day and we're going to make your life a living hell. And Mr. Emery was like, if you don't back, it give me 50 feet. I'm gonna knock you out. And the white people got scared. He went looking for Betty but never found her. Oh, the realtor, I'm not sure if she ever got the karma that she deserved for purposefully allowing black people to live in neighborhoods knowing that it wasn't safe for them. And then on top of that, she had like a slick little deal with one of the sheriffs, one of the police officers, making sure that they protect the black people as long as they could while getting all these under the table payouts from her and her realting deals, I guess. I think that's about it. Those are the main people that I'm going to talk about. So I will discuss Betty. I would discuss the white neighbor man that I don't care to know his name because he was trash. The realtor. Oh, and then Mr. Emery's boss. First of all, Mr. Emery was intelligent. I believe he was in engineering, to be exact. Not sure though. And his boss was really uptight as well, and everything was semi-fine. I mean, like, it's the 1950s. What do we really expect? We expect a really nice boss. If bosses now are trash and they treat you like slaves, what made you think that they didn't really treat you like a slave, especially if you were the one black guy on the engineering team as a slave as well? So the boss, he was like 1950s racist, but he wasn't like, I hate y'all. He was like, I hate you, but I do want you to know that I am here for you. If you have any ideas that you want to tell me, that I will steal the idea and I will act as though it's mine, even though it's yours. That person. He was extremely disingenuous. Oh, and then he got an attitude with Mr. Emery when Mr. Emery came to this party or whatever that was strictly for the higher ups and the people on Mr. Emery's team. And Mr. Emery was the only person who wasn't really invited because technically he was black. He was the one black man on the team, but also in addition to that, Mr. Emery ended up like one-upping him multiple times in front of his boss's manager, which peed off the boss. And he was like, dang, who do you really think you are? Because all you're ever gonna be is a dirt person, so therefore I'm gonna need you to back and let me shine as I take all the credit that you out of all the things that you create underneath me, type thing. So yeah, that was the introduction or a brief summary. Because I forgot to do like a really smooth transition, the first part that took forever was basically all the external conflict and all the external events, and then the eternal events deals with the hauntings and such inside the house. Then you have all the family members. All 4 people had an individual type of white person who terrorized them, except for Lucky. But I believe that's because she was literally physically terrorized by a group of white people, so it didn't really terrorize her the same way. But all the individual people, no, like Gracie's terrorist was also Lucky's terrorist, if that makes sense. So as Gracie would go inside the closet or go searching around the house, she would see this specific person and she would sing this specific song that was like really creepy and eerie, and Lucky found it weird, but then Lucky started putting the dots together and realizing, oh crap, Miss so-and-so, Missy Elvera, I think the character's name was Miss Vera. It was a fictional character that Lucky used to read to Gracie, and Gracie's imagination literally blew the person up into like different proportions than what it needed to be, and the person became a scary figure. And so Lucky made it her mission to try to get rid of this person who was terrorizing her daughter and stuff like that. Ruby, she's a terrorist, was a white girl who was supposed to be her best friend. And so when you're watching the show or the first time you see the white girl, you're like, oh my gosh, like, wow, she has like a decent white friend at her school. Good for her, I guess. And then you realize that no, the white girl is what she wants to be. The white girl represents all that she wants to be. She's the prettiest girl. She's not disrespected. She gets in trouble because she has fun. She's a cheerleader, stuff like that. And because Ruby is none of those things, she's just a dark-skinned, skinny girl who's going to be bullied continuously for that. Like, she ended up making her own person to help her cope with her experience at school. And for the dad, we have this minstrelsy-esque man who's, it's like, when you think about the character, it looked like a black man who was in white face, who was in black face. And I don't know why they did that makeup wise, but okay. But yeah, it was a minstrel-esque black guy who was following him around, being all very passive aggressive, trying to make Mr. Emery act out of character and just essentially be the extreme masculine version of what he could be, but like in a doofy type of way. Like, the minstrelsy guy was just extremely violent, and he wanted Mr. Emery to be more violent as a response to people being crappy to him. That was about it. Anything else? I mean, you have Mr. Emery's aunt in the show, who was, I believe, Felicia from Friday. She was decent. She was one of the saving graces for the Emerys, honestly, because if it wasn't for her, they would have just been out there by themselves. And I have a lot of empathy for them. I have a lot of empathy for the Emerys. That family deserves way more, and I believe they were only there for like 7 days. They were only there in that house for like a week or less than a week. Just overall, the behavior was extremely weird, and we're going to talk about it now. So yeah, it is known that not all white people owned slaves. However, I would say that a PBS article stated that approximately 3/4 of white Southerners did not own slaves. Of those who did, they only owned 20 or fewer, which is used as an excuse to not blame all white people. Okay? Just because your ancestors specifically did not own slaves does not mean that you still don't have any residual harsh feelings towards black people that were passed down from your mother to your grandfather to your great grandmother to your great 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 Mima. Just because you didn't own slaves doesn't mean you're not racist. And after the Civil War, there was the Great Migration, where a lot of African Americans moved from the South to the North, and you have many of them who moved from the South to the West. And in that instance, many of the people who were living in the urban developments in the North and in the West during that time, during the migration, started moving into the suburbs because they were like, these people think that they could be like us, that they could live with us. Oh no, ma'am. No, I'ma move. So you had many of them who started moving into the suburbs, and that's why we have the suburbs today. The whole grouping idea really stems from insecurity, because people really do not want to be challenged. Honestly, they just want to be around people who are like them. Where's the conflict? I get to live my life in peace, right? And they feel as though they don't have to terrorize people, because deep down inside, I don't want to terrorize people, but I will, because you're interfering with my peace. Ugh. The article I am quoting from is low self-esteem predicts out-of-group derogation via collective narcissism, but this relationship is obscured in group satisfaction. As I was mentioning before, a lot of racists, including in them, the neighbors, etc., all live in this bubble. They like to be in this group, and they like in-group thinking. That's why when Betty's husband was minding his business, doing whatever he wanted to do, they found it weird because they're like, huh? You're not as intense as us. You're weird. We don't like you anymore. You could be by yourself and we would not care. That's why they took Betty as their queen, because she was so gun-ho about making them leave, because she hated them being there for other reasons, but as a collective they did not want the Emerys there. But my point of bringing up in group thinking is that white people are narcissistic. I don't know when this started. Let's just say colonialism. So the narcissism kind of started during colonialism, when they started conquering and colonizing all these foreign lands, etc., etc. They became narcissistic. They started to believe that the world revolves around them and that they should be praised at all times for their colonialism, for them changing and transforming the world into their view, into what they wanted to be seen as. If it was up to anybody else, we would not care that much.
We do not care.
Shit narcissists say, translated into English. You are way too sensitive.
You called me out on my shit, or reacted to my abuse. I won't take accountability because my ego is more important than how you feel. If I tell you that you're too sensitive, it will make you think the way I treat you is normal, and that you're overreacting. This way, you'll feel worse about yourself and I can keep abusing you.
The more you know.
But white people have, or racist white people to be exact, there's a collective narcissism that comes with the white people, especially in them, especially now, that makes it seem as though we're the crazy ones. First of all, racism is a abusive relationship. Obviously, America is abusive in itself, on its own. But colonialism, along with colonization and colonizers, they gaslight the hell out of people of color, especially black people, into believing we're the crazy ones. We're crazy for being treated this way. We're crazy when we talk about our treatment. And we're crazy when we retaliate against their terrorism. Low self-esteem motivates group members to derogate out groups, thus achieving positive in-group distinctiveness and boosting self-esteem. When we tell you as black people, white people, y'all get like a boost out of being racist towards us, we're not lying. Y'all, for a moment in time, are so happy. And y'all are so happy regardless of what your actions are. You get happy when you call the police on us because we made you mad. You get happy when you see us getting arrested at a pool that you didn't want us to be at in the first place, even though we live in the same complex as you. You get happy when you see us getting shot 10,000 times on the same news channel for a year. You get happy when you see us getting arrested in mass quantity for protesting for our rights. You get happy. You get happy because you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're so bad. They're bad people. They need to be put in prisons. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see these people being terrorized by our fellow white brothers, because you don't understand that we're a collective of people. We're a collective of the same species. And that right there is very off-putting to you. So instead of acknowledging our humanity and just acknowledging the fact that every person who has social media, who runs a social media account, everybody that you run into the store, that you see at the mall, when you go bungee jumping, when you get onto an airplane, the person who's driving the plane, flying the plane, driving the bus, driving your Uber, cooking your food, doing your lawn. We're all human. But instead of acknowledging our humanity, you choose to make it a competition and try to justify your humanity over my humanity, basically saying, oh, you shouldn't be able to exist happily because I deserve that, and you don't because you're not me, you're not in my group, so therefore I do not care. An example of this in them is when Miss Ruby is in school on her first day. She's in her class, she's reading her books, she already knows the story that they're already talking about in class on her first day. And when she talks, the boys mock her. They try to reduce her down to being a monkey, reduce her down to being an ape. But she's still just as human as you are, if not more, because she read the story. She knows the story. She has immense reading comprehension skills. She could be the teacher's pet if the teacher wasn't racist. She could be the head of her class if the school wasn't racist. But instead of acknowledging her intelligence and acknowledging all of her just her being, her essence as an amazing straight A student, no, let's acknowledge her race because that matters more. Who do you think you are to be smarter than me? What? Who do you think you are to be smarter than me? In this class, in this building, that was made for me. That was made for me to succeed. Who do you think you are? Who? This isn't even about you. This is about my intelligence. Yeah, no. Who do you think you are to think you're smarter than me? That is white collective narcissism. And that was one of the major takeaways that I took from this show. Because then I'm like, wow. Why does racism have to revolve around you when you're the one being racist? Why are you doing this to me? Like, the whole string of Karens on the internet who go viral every couple of months because they're racist and they want to do something incredibly racist that day without ever experiencing the repercussions of their racist actions. They start to make the whole thing about them. Why are you recording me? Why are you trying to ruin my life? No, you tried to ruin my day. You tried to ruin my life. You tried to end my life today by calling the police, knowing that the police are deliberately against me, in my safety, in my life. And you chose to potentially, can you calm down, Jessica? I had to talk to my stomach because she wanted to be making noises. That is embarrassing. Anyways, you decided to take it upon yourself to potentially end my life today, knowing that the police is deliberately against me and my safety and my life, because I told you that I was in line ahead of you and that you couldn't skip me. Sarah, Jessica Parker. I'm not throwing shade at Sarah Jessica Parker. I really do appreciate her existence, but the name came to mind, so I'm sorry, sis. But yeah, like, out of all the things in the world to be focused on, you want to make it about you. Betty took the Emery's moving across the street from her as an attack on her. The people in the neighborhood took it as an attack on them. That is narcissism. Not everything is about you. And because you're a group, you think that everything that doesn't revolve around you, that doesn't acknowledge you, that doesn't even speak around you, be around you, like, it's about you. And we see this today, how just the idea of critical race theory angers so many people, especially the colored people, because they think that that class and that subject will revolve around racism, white racism, when race, that was a social construct created by the colored people, isn't just about y'all anymore. It's about us. It's about the people of color. Let's talk about everyone. Let's talk about race overall. But they wouldn't understand that because they don't want to pick up the book. They don't want to pick up an article. They would rather just go off of the assumption, oh, they're calling me out for being racist. I'm not racist. You're trying to ruin my life. You're trying to brainwash us. Do you think we will ever have that much power? That is collective narcissism. It really is. And if you don't know what narcissism is when you as a person, you think that the world revolves around you. You think that, well, not the world, but you think every single thing is about you. One of the best narcissists that we had to date was Donald Trump. And I would say he's one of the best because he made everything about him. He made his whole presidency about him. Oh, why isn't the media acknowledging that I made the economy go up? I fixed black unemployment. I fixed a lot of things. Where is my credit? You get your credit from Fox, babes. I don't know what you want. Like, you got credit. No, I want credit from everybody. I want everybody to acknowledge me. Every single day. Y'all all want to be acknowledged as the greatest humans in America. The greatest, most intelligent, most wise, most worthy people in America, when that was never the case, and it should never be the case now. And it was only allowed back then because y'all didn't give us the right to actually speak. And now that we have the ability to speak, which is why a lot of people are angry at Lena Waithe, including me, is because why are we still making media like this? Like, I mean, them was very thought-provoking to me, but them thoroughly showed me that white people are narcissistic in nature and they victimize themselves like a narcissist. They will gaslight you, make themselves the victim. Like, whenever a white person who wants to be an ally so bad, they're like, am I an ally? Am I a good ally? Can I have my ally cookie? Can I be treated like an ally? I love the blacks. I love the brown people. I love the Asians. I love all of y'all. Why can't y'all love me more? Because I treat y'all with like a little bit more decency than other people of my color. Like, I've seen it so often, and as a person who stays on TikTok, who makes TikTok content, it's so crazy how every other week we have like another colored person who was acting as though they're an ally be called out for not being a real ally and not minding their business the way that they could have and the way that they should have. As a collective, white people believe that they are their own group, and they want to be nowadays they want to be involved in all the other groups, which is weird because they were the first gatekeepers, right? And so when you watch them, you see how they gatekeep neighborhoods, they gatekeep fun, love, friendship. And they won't even allow you to even talk to them unless they want to threaten you in that neighborhood, since you came and interrupted their group. You interrupted their space. You interrupted their lives because you decided to come into their neighborhood one day and you decided to mess up their lives. Collective narcissists. And the reason why they get away with their collective narcissism is because they're the majority. They get away with their collective narcissism because they're the group. They're the group who creates the laws. They're the group who gets to be heard the most. They're the group who gets away with a lot of things. And they only get caught when they do those same things to their own people. I know that ran for a long time, but yeah, just them. The show Them. It showed that white people are really collective narcissists even probably the writers, they are most definitely a collective narcissist. They believe they're allies, but they're not really allies, because if you were really an ally, you would know what you're doing is so traumatic. And I started watching this documentary yesterday. It's on HBO. It's called All the Brutes. And this documentary was made by like a black man. And one of the people that he quoted was one of his friends named Sven Lindvest. I'm sorry that I couldn't say his name right, but rest in peace to that man. He said, "It's not knowledge we lack, it's the courage to understand what we know to draw conclusions." Let me say it again so you could thoroughly understand. It's not the knowledge we lack, it's the courage to understand what we know to draw conclusions. And a lot of white people have never done the work to understand that their whiteness, that is a social construct, is a weapon against all people of color. And by doing so, you allow a lot of things to slide, or you wouldn't let slide if it was done to you and if it was done to another white person. But here's the thing about white people. Because they were allowed to have their own individual group, they don't really see themselves as a family. And so what I find funny is when, like, you see the collective of black people in them. You see how as a community they come together. They come together for dinner. They come together to have a good time, to just move past all the bogus racist events of their lives, to come together and to love one another as a community. And that's why there is no such thing as a white community. There's only a black community. There's only the Latin community and Asian community. Those are communities. Those people can love one another based off of the circumstances that were placed upon them because of race. White people cannot. And I think that bothers white people the most, but they don't know that. And I think when they finally start doing the work, and realize that there's no community from whiteness, and the only community that can come from whiteness stems off of hate, then it's a lot to digest. Because then you're like, wow, my whole being, like, they only feel family from like being physical family, right? But for black people, I can see a black person on the street, I can see a black person in the store, we'd be like, and then we move past it. We're like, we're here, we see each other, boom, boom, bam, go about our day. White people, on the other hand, they don't be like, hey, brother. Like, they just don't. And I think that kind of bothers them when they see that, like, black people, we get together as a collective and we could destroy your lives on Twitter. But white people, they get together based off of their interests. So even though they're the people who created the social construct of whiteness,
is my wig cap showing? No. Let me move you back. There we go. So significantly more secure. But yeah,
white people, let's say white feminists can come together as a collective and destroy someone. The KKK can come together and destroy someone, kill people even, and that's what they have done for like nearly over a century. The government, like, they're a collective of people who has destroyed minorities' lives for over centuries. So yeah, but as a collective, they could never collectively be a family. They could never be a community. There is no community there. And I feel like that bothers white people the most, because if we really got to the nitty-gritty when we talk about economics, because now I'm gonna venture into my second point is how capitalism is the ultimate separator of white community. White people don't have no community because of economics. When I was watching Judas and the Black Messiah, and I saw how Fred Hampton literally got the Latin Kings, he got the Black Panther Party. Apparently, the group was the Young Patriot Organization. And those people were comprised of lower class white people. During the 70s, which I feel like we're in the middle of a revolution now. But the moment that poor white people realize that it's not people of color who's the problem, it's not people of color who's gonna take over the US, who's gonna take y'all captive, who's going to make y'all slaves, who's not even trying to eradicate your race, because we honestly do not care. We have other things to be focused on instead of y'all and y'all collective narcissism. They figured out in the 70s why they're not getting anywhere: because of capitalism. Capitalism is the driving force for a lot of bad things in America, which is why now I want my fellow Trump supporters and all of my Republicans to realize and reevaluate that it's not people of color who's the problem. We're not even the threat. We've known that capitalism hasn't been serving us for nearly our entire existence in America. The people who are last, or the extreme last people to figure it out, are going to be white people, because they believe deep down inside it's our fault as to why America is the way that it is. But the white people in the 70s partnered up with the Black Panther Party in Chicago with Fred Hampton and the Latin Kings. They realized that it was capitalism that was the driving force as to why they haven't been able to be happy, as to why they are experiencing all of their financial downfalls. This is separating white people because they're the same people who created, lower class, or calling lower class white people rednecks, white trash, etc., etc. And then you have the working class, which is above rednecks, above white trash. And then you have the higher up, high class white people. High class white people don't even acknowledge the working class. Higher class white people who would never even imagine acknowledging the lower class. And for lower class white people in this day, consider Ronald Reagan one of their prime inspirations, is extremely delusional, because not only was he against poor people, he literally changed our economic system forever, to the point where we haven't been functioning the way that we should have been functioning based off of the projections in the 70s. The 70s was the last time we had a decent economy. Even then, we were still pretty much in the pooper, but there was no Reaganomics. The introduction of Reaganomics really messed up not only the black community, but it messed up every single community. And by giving extreme tax cuts to the rich, we have never received all that we could have been receiving if those tax cuts were never in place. And I want white people to finally wake up from their narcissistic slumber and to acknowledge the fact that capitalism is killing y'all as much as it's killing us. And no matter how hard you try to ignore that problem, you could eradicate all the people of color in the world, y'all will still continue to suffer because y'all refuse to acknowledge capitalism was the problem the entire time. That's why when it comes to the realtor and them and how she was like, I want this paycheck, her life was put at risk, but she was okay with that risk because she knew deep down inside she wasn't going to be poor. She knew that she wasn't living on the street. She knew that she wasn't living in no barn. She knew good and well that when she got those paychecks from selling those houses to those black people that she did not care about, that she was being well taken care of by the system, because it benefits off of making horrible, unethical decisions just to get paid. And so what makes you think that white people haven't been set up by your own people to succeed in capitalism? You have white people who are treated like trash at their Amazon jobs every single day, and they still get mad at black people. They still find a way to blame black people for their situation. It's not us, babes. It's capitalism. And if you really want to succeed, we gotta tear down capitalism together as a collective. And that's why they killed Fred Hampton. I know this wasn't even about Fred Hampton, but that was also a part of my thing, because I was kind of comparing the two. What? And y'all, I am back as your fairy godmother. Yes, but with a flair. So, I hope you enjoy. Okay, the final part that I will be discussing, if I didn't mess everything up from the beginning, is white guilt. White guilt isn't a part of the series, but it is something that I realized that has occurred in the process of making the show. White people. If white people didn't experience white guilt, they wouldn't have made the show. If white people would have continued to make all the shows and series that they've been making for at least 20 years, this show would have never popped up. It only popped up because of the Black Lives Matter rallies and protests that happened as a result of the three. Well, no, it wasn't even three. It was, if it wasn't for those deaths, for those murders, for that loss of life, this series wouldn't even exist. I think white guilt is very irritating for people of color, because with white guilt, white people want cookies for feeling guilty and for now realizing things that we've been trying to tell them for a long time. Because white guilt stems from the beginning to understand, as Sven stated, or as I stated before, what Sven said. It is only the beginning of the thinking, of the knowing, of the understanding of what racism in America is and what it has done, and what racism around the world, because he wasn't even talking about America, he's European. So just the understanding of racism and hatred around the world. White guilt isn't beneficial. It is not beneficial to me, and it is not beneficial to other people of color. And as much as white allies try to make it be beneficial for us, it simply isn't. The white guilt that came with the creation of this show was very visible. Why would you make a show like this that blatantly copies the stylings of a biracial black man? You stole his aesthetic and you took it and you made a show that you thought would be way more of a success for black people, specifically older black Gen Zers and millennials. And instead, we were the same demographic that ripped it to shreds. Like, the idea wasn't good. I feel like if it was executed by a real black person, it would have been better. I feel as though certain stories shouldn't come from white directors or film makers or even just screenwriters, it wasn't for us. That's my thing. It's like, it wasn't for us, it was mainly for white people. The whole thing, it just read of, I'm a white person and I know this story and I want you to know this story, and so I want the blacks to be on my side as I tell this story by having Lena Waithe. And then on top of that, the show was so traumatizing that you have a group of black people who watched it and they're like, I'm traumatized, I don't want to watch the rest of this because it was so traumatic for them. It was made in a way that was made for white people, and white guilt in regards to film making and screenwriting, etc., is very visible, because you can tell, like, when you watch Insecure, you know it's written for black people without it being blatantly pro-black. Same for Friends. You know that Friends was made for white people and their audience were white people, and that was that. But with them, it's not like it came with a lot of nuance. It's like, oh, it was very obviously a white woman was bitter and she wanted to terrorize black people. Oh, it was very obvious that a whole community of white people hated black people so much that they caused so much terror and trauma into them. Wow. This is all obvious stuff. There wasn't much nuance, and overall, white guilt isn't helping black people, because after the show ended, what did those same people who worked on the crew, the script, the director, screenwriter, everything, what did y'all do for the black community? What did Lena Waithe do for the black community since she wanted to be a part of it? What was the goal here? To entertain, but to entertain white people, because this wasn't entertaining for us. And I want white guilt to understand that you can feel guilty for your whiteness, but don't make media for black people out of guilt. If you're gonna make media for us, at least let it be good. I mean, the one thing that I could say is that at least we had dark-skinned representation. But then I'm like, was it worth it? Because the dark-skinned representation all went through extremely traumatic events, and it wasn't giving what y'all thought it was supposed to give. That's what I'm saying. Like, all of that fluffing for what? Did y'all give to Black Lives Matter? Did y'all give to the jail bailouts? The jail funds, the bailout funds? Did y'all, like, what did y'all do? Like, white guilt isn't beneficial, because you can feel guilty, but what are you doing with your guilt except for trying to be a visible ally without taking up space of black creatives? You had a majority white team making this show, but why? Like, what was the purpose of the show? What was the purpose of all of it? White guilt. But y'all made this in the guise of white guilt, in that us as white people, as a white corporation, we want to give back to the black people by giving them this show. But why? Was it for it rubs off as a show for white people. It's not for me. I just watched it, and again, the question, how is it beneficial? Because it wasn't beneficial to the black community. It didn't change anything, and overall everything is still the same after the show ended. So what I want from the white community, as your very beautiful fairy godmother, please understand that you have white insecurity, and I don't want you to feel sorry for your insecurity. I don't want to deal with your white insecurity. anymore. I just want you to understand that you're insecure about being white. You're insecure about a lot of things in your life. And I want you to start healing that and start understanding the fact that you're white. You can't change that, but accept your whiteness without trying to up people of color. I want you to understand that being white is not bad, but you being white doesn't mean that you're the end all be all, that you're the highest being on this earth. I want you to understand that no one is trying to erase your whiteness. And I want you to understand that capitalism is tearing y'all down. Not me, not none of my black community, not brown people, and surely not Asian people. None of the people of color are trying to tear y'all down, trying to eradicate y'all, etc. It is capitalism. I want y'all to figure it out. I want y'all to destroy the system to better y'all lives so y'all don't have to be slaves to the system as well. And stop feeling guilty for being white. We don't want that. We want you to accept your whiteness without you trying to destroy our lives in the process for us being non-white. That is all we want. Accept the fact that you're white. Love yourself. Love yourself because you exist. Love yourself for all of the things that you think you're not supposed to love yourself for. Love yourself. That's part of healing. Understand your ancestral trauma that comes from being white. Forgive your white ancestors for what they did to my people. And I'm telling you to forgive them, because even though you as a white person feel that white guilt, you shouldn't feel that. And because of that, I want you to forgive your white ancestors, not to forget what they did. I want you to forgive them. Forgive them because you understand where they went wrong, and you may not understand why they did what they did, why they tried to destroy my people, why they tried so hard to make the world theirs and they semi-succeeded. I want you to forgive them so you don't feel guilty for their actions and that you don't repeat their actions in the process. And I want you to start healing and understanding or trying to create your own culture. Because as of right now, there has never been a white culture. The only thing that has been associated with the white culture is colonization and destruction and terrorism. And so I want y'all to create a community of white people who love y'all, like who love each other, not because of y'all race, but because of collective things. I want y'all, especially because white people, y'all don't have a culture. Like African Americans, we have our own culture because we're black, we're African, we're all related to each other via slavery, and we're American. And so that's us. That's those my people. But for white people, because y'all don't have the race element, because y'all are not oppressed, y'all will never be oppressed, I want y'all to like find something. Love each other because of something, religion, style, media. Like y'all have a lot of things, I guess. Hairstyles, not hair color, cause no, this pink, mine's, but y'all find something. Just love each other as a community. So like, I guess for white Americans, love each other, love your fellow white people because y'all are American, or if y'all are like American but like immigrated to America like recently, like within this century, then love your culture, love your genetic diversity, love the fact that, oh, I'm from Germany, oh, I'm from the UK, oh, I'm from Turkey, like do something. expeditiously. Figure it out now, because the sooner y'all do that, the more I could possibly feel safe in this country. So yeah, and also please don't let Trump be a part of your culture. I get it, that was a phase, and eventually it's gonna run its course, but baby, it's not cute anymore. The man's not president, he not coming back. Let it go. Also, he's old. I don't know why y'all were praising an old man to be y'all president. And even though I'm a socialist and I voted for Biden over Trump, that doesn't mean that I support Biden, because I don't. I support me being able to live a decent life under the horrible choices that were given to me. So yeah, that's a major difference, and I want my Trump supporters who probably didn't make it all the way to the end to understand that I do love y'all. I'm sending y'all love, and I want y'all to understand that you shouldn't be insecure about your whiteness. No one is trying to make you be insecure about your whiteness. Babes, you're just white, and you have to live with that, and you also have to live with whatever your ancestors did, because deep down inside, just because you say that your ancestors weren't slave owners doesn't mean that they weren't. You probably just don't know them, or you do, and I'm talking as a black person who don't know all of my ancestors, because your ancestors literally stripped them of everything and all of my history, so I don't know mine. But yeah, you'll figure it out, babes. Just, you know, when you figure out that your ancestors weren't slave owners, but they were probably still extremely racist, forgive them for that behavior. Forgive them for that behavior, and start forgiving yourself for being born white. I didn't have to forgive myself for being black, because but for you, definitely forgive yourself for being born white. Forgive yourself for being born with privilege. Just forgive yourself for all the opportunities that are automatically given to you via your privilege, and start creating a culture, babes. Y'all, I want white people to start loving each other and genuinely loving each other because they have similar interests. I don't want y'all to join together out of hatred anymore. I think that's extremely problematic. I mean, y'all are problematic people as of right now anyway, but I do want y'all to start loving each other. Find a culture, figure it out, and forgive your ancestors for all the evil that they did. And that will probably start your healing process, and it will probably rid you of your problematic white guilt, so therefore you don't have to want an ally cookie for doing the bare minimum, and start trying to demolish capitalism. I love you. Have a good one.